Fast Lawyer VR Reviews. For sexy VR reviews, hit the subscribe button. Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we are going to review SURV1V3 or SURV1V3. It's a zombie shooter survival horror game. It originally released on the Steam store back in January of 2018 and released out of early access June of 2021. It is made by developer Candy Makers. It normally retails for $24.99. I actually received a free Steam key from one of my Steam friends, War Motor, no relation to the developer. I tested this game out on the MetaQuest 2 using link cable. I would estimate it took me approximately 20 hours to beat the game. I spent a total of almost 24 hours playing this game. I think the best description for the game is a slower paced Left 4 Dead. It really is focused on online co-op multiplayer, and I really think that's where the game really shines. However, if you're like me and you like to play solo, this game is approachable. I played this on normal difficulty. I played all the campaigns solo, and I did not have any difficulty beating the game as such. Now, there are 3 game modes: the story mode, the survival mode, and the trials mode. Most of my time was spent on the story mode, so that's where my review is going to be focused on. Now, it is a challenging game, especially at first when you're learning the game mechanics, and it might seem impossible, but once you get down what the game wants you to do, it's actually not that bad. I would definitely say this game is not for everyone. There is a bit of jank, and the gameplay is a bit on the tactical side, but once you get over that just initial difficulty curve, this game does become very satisfying to play. Survive is running on the Unreal Engine. On my RTX 3080, I was getting a steady 90 frames per second. Surprisingly, and I say so because of the length of the game, I did not come across any major issues or bugs. There were some minor annoyances. Sometimes zombies would get stuck in the terrain, or you'd see a zombie sticking through a wall, but really nothing major, and even those issues were few and far between. You do have full locomotion as well as smooth and snap turning available. There is button crouch available as well. You can play this game comfortably seated. You can one-hand or two-hand weapons. You do have a plethora of weapons, including melee. Now, the weapons here are on the arcade side, so don't expect realistic physics, but they're not total arcade. There is some realistic physics here, but definitely the weapon handling here is not the most realistic I've ever played in VR. You can one-hand most assault rifles and still be pretty accurate. In fact, you can see on this video that for the most part I was one-handing the weapons, and I just got used to that over two-handing them, and it's a real benefit because then you can have two-handed weapons in your hands, and having an LMG in one hand and an AK-47 in the other is a pretty powerful combination. This game does reward skill, and headshots are very important. You kill faster and you save ammo, which is of the utmost importance. Also, using melee weapons when appropriate is a very strong strategy in this game. Now, like I said, the melee weapons aren't the most realistic, but the harder you swing, the better chance you have of braining the zombie and thus killing them with one shot. Reloads are quite dangerous in this game because you can be caught in the middle of a reload as a zombie approaches you, so you do want to have a second weapon on the ready. You do have button eject for the magazines, and then you just manually put in the magazine and then charge the weapon. Each weapon does have a different feel. The shotguns are obviously my favorites, and the melee weapons can break. Your inventory is very limited, so you do have to strategize what you want to take for each start of the zombie run, as well as very important to pick up items along the way and get into safe houses. As far as enemy variety, there really isn't a whole lot. Now, there is some zombie variety, but just not enough in my opinion. You have your normal zombies, and you have your zombies with armor, and then you have your big tanky zombies, and then you have your zombies with some kind of like radiation coming out of them, and then you have like the bloaters that'll spit ooze into you that make it hard for you to see. And then you have your really fast zombies that run really fast at you. And lastly, you have your zombie boss fights. And really the only difference here is when you talk about bullet sponges, oh my god, these guys are total bullet sponges, especially that last zombie boss. And while I don't think this game is difficult, especially not on the normal survivor difficulty, I will point out that only 15% of players have finished the first chapter, and only 5% of total players per Steam achievements have finished the game. I will say that I do think the gameplay overall is a little bit on the repetitive side, because you really are doing the same thing almost throughout the entire game. You go from point A to point B, killing lots of zombies along the way, making sure that you have enough supplies to get there, and stopping usually along the way just to resupply. It is almost always worth it to find that safe house along the way. It makes the game a lot easier. One thing that keeps the game from getting stale is all the different weapons that you have at your disposal, even the different attachments and all the different ammo types. It just keeps the game interesting, especially since you're usually forced to try a different weapon because you're out of ammo for maybe your favorite weapon. I often ditched the weapon that I had when it ran out of ammo and just grabbed a new one and went on my merry way. It kept the game very fresh. However, I wasn't a fan of the inventory system. I found it to be clunky. I was not a fan of the attachment unlock system, where here you're basically looking for magazines in order to unlock some of the attachments or some of the special ammo. I just did not like that system. It's just very frustrating to come across new weapon attachments or new explosive ammo and you just can't use it. I also wasn't a big fan of the map system in this game. I found it very clunky to use, although it does play a big part in the difficulty of this game. Eventually I did get good at using the map in one hand and using the weapon in the other and just blasting my way through. In my opinion, I thought the level design was overall pretty good. I know some people are gonna say they hate the sewers, but I actually enjoyed the sewers. I thought it was actually one of the best parts of the game, especially once you learn how to navigate around with the map and in the darkness. And the thing about the sewers, it just brings a really special atmosphere where you really do feel a danger around every corner. And while I did enjoy the sewers, I imagine this is where a lot of people gave up on the game. Now, the story overall for me wasn't all that great, but it was good enough to keep me going and interested in the gameplay. It does have a repetitive gameplay loop, but it's also a very fun and satisfying gameplay loop. This game just gets you excited for every single headshot because every bullet matters in this game. The sound design here is awesome. It has great spatial audio, so you can usually always tell where zombies are coming from. It also has good ambient sounds to get you into that zombie horror mood, as well as a pretty good soundtrack that I was digging. Survive, you can definitely tell, is a indie horror survival game that's a tribute to Left 4 Dead, but it's also the best Left 4 Dead type experience in VR, especially if you're looking for a challenge. Don't get it wrong though, I'm not saying this is Left 4 Dead in VR. It's nowhere near as good as the exceptional quality in Left 4 Dead, but for an indie VR game, I think it's a pretty good tribute to Left 4 Dead, and like I said, probably the best Left 4 Dead type experience in VR. Overall, if I have to rate this, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's a really good game and I highly recommend it. It is worth the price of admission. Like I said, I got almost 20 total hours just in the story mode alone. Anyways, I'm Fast Lawyer. If you enjoyed my video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the video.
The only place in town where you can find some C4 explosives is the armory in the police district. Unfortunately, in order to access that room, you need to open a fucking armored door, thick as a wall. It's impossible to knock it down. Well, guess what? We need its number code to open it. When it all fell apart, the police station was stormed almost immediately. So the surviving cops stayed and barricaded themselves in the Port Maine Penitentiary. Find the sergeant in the armory. He must have a card with the code printed on it. It was changed every week as an internal security measure. Got it loud and clear? Find that fucking code at all costs.